Charlie said, hey, Marisol and Ismar are going to introduce you as former JFSLA, Julie Foudy Sports Leadership Academy alum, as well as PCF alum. And I was like, yes, that's so great. So I haven't seen them in quite a few years. It was great to see them. Charlie is a longtime friend of our family, the Foudy families. And so I have been hearing about all the wonderful things that the Peninsula College Fund has done over the course of, what, a decade now, Charlie?
13 years.
13 years. Yeah, 13 years. And the passion behind it that he talks about constantly when he's talking about these kids, and he's talking about Marisol and Ismar and Elizabeth, who's on stage with us as another PCF alumni, is just heartwarming. To see how much he cares and to see that, as they were talking about, it's not just getting them into college. Financially, it's then navigating that whole process with them and providing mentors and providing a dream team. And so much of that path is actually what was really a catalyst for a little bit of background on the book I wrote. I'm an author, a very important one, as I tell my kids. I'm like, Mom. Izzy was just reading, true story, all of the Harry Potter series, and when she finished Harry, I was like, can you please now read my book? And so she was reading it the other day, and she's like, Mom, no offense, but like, there's not enough magic and stuff. There's not enough things that fly around. I'm like, I have no wizards. I have none of that. There's no Hogwarts. But one of the things that I've always loved in watching Charlie with the PCF is that so much of it is about leadership being personal rather than positional, which is a big theme in this book and a big theme with why we started the leadership academies. In that I always felt growing up that you had to be in a position of power to lead. You had to be a president or a CEO or a politician or a man sitting on a horse with a tall hat and a sword and had, all these stars as a general. And what I didn't realize is, because I always thought, well, I'm not any of those people, right? I'm not a white man. I'm not in a position of power. I don't have any formal education and leadership training. And so as a young woman, grew up thinking, well, then that's clearly not me. And then I got around all these amazing women on the national team, Brandi being one of them, and I'll introduce all these fine panelists in 1 second, who showed me that my definition of leadership was so wrong. And that, in fact, leadership is all these different things. It's all these different forms. It's quiet, as like a Mia Hamm was. You might have heard of her. She played on the national team. She was pretty good. Brandi and I gave her all these beautiful balls that she could score. We did all the work for her. But Mia was a very quiet, private, shy, reserved, and it came off as, kind of standoffish, but in fact what it was is she didn't have the confidence to stand in the middle of the circle and pound her chest. That was not Mia. Her style was very personal. She'd pull Abby Wambach, who was a young forward at the time, over on the team, and you'd see them walking off the field together, and Mia'd have her arm around her, and they'd be talking. Or she'd be in the locker room that way doing it. And then I'd see, Brandi Chastain, who we called the Energizer Bunny, right? Because Brandi is this contagious ball of positive energy that never stops. And it just spreads joy and happiness wherever she goes. So you saw that side of it as well. And then you see someone like another player we played with for many years, Joy Fawcett, who was actually my co-captain the last 4 years we were on the team. Literally the first 10 years she was on the national team, she did not talk. We thought there was something wrong with her. We're like, what is her problem? But when Joy spoke, boy, you listened, because she was spot on. She was not a woman of many words, but when she spoke, it was like, shh, Joy is talking, quiet. And she problem solved, and she had great instincts, and she would constantly just be in that back line, like dictating stuff, but with very short bursts. And so I grew up watching all these amazing women lead in these different ways, and I realized that my definition of leadership was so very wrong. And that leadership is, in fact, personal, not positional. And that you just have to figure out what your style is. And how I wished I had known that earlier, and so set out in a small way to say, I'm going to do these leadership academies. And as we started doing these leadership academies, we saw the transformational effect it had on kids when you told them, you don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be a president. You don't have to be a CEO to lead. You can lead in your own way, and here's how. And that is a really life-affirming, transformational experience, an epiphany for a lot of young women. And to just hear it in a different form and to share those examples with them in so many different areas. And so that's where the book came from, is the national team and these leadership academies, and realizing maybe this is a message that needs to be heard by more young women in particular. It's not just for young women, but I find that, and we'll talk about that on the panel tonight, that we often want to be perfect, and so we wait far too long to raise our hands sometimes and choose to lead. So with that background, as some of the things we'll talk about on this panel, and I do not do formal panels, and in the book, which is why we have our socks on, the theme we came to is what could we do, because I interview these women in the book, these 10 amazing women, that would be informal and not, and we shot them for ESPN, so we had them on camera, and that always creates this kind of formality because you got the cameras and the lights. But we said, how can we do it where it's really informal and it's just like literally I could have, you know, a beer here and we have our feet up on the coffee table. And my producer said, how would you be sitting with my first two interviews with Mia Hamm and Alex Morgan? I said, like this? And she goes, well then let's shoot it like that. And that's how we started the SockTalk theme. And so hence, in honor of the Sock Talks, we thought we would share our crazy socks with you tonight. I hope you all wore them. Feel free to put them on Izzy's head over here. Put your feet up, it's fine. But without further ado, let's get the Sock Talk party started. Our token man on the right. We love men. Al was so kind to agree to do this tonight. Al Camarillo has been a professor of history at the fine institution of Stanford University since 1975. 1975, and he just retired, which makes me sad, Al. I feel like you have another 10 years in you at least. Just retired from being there. Al was regarded as one of the founding scholars of the field of Mexican-American history and Chicano studies. Born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, Compton, you might have heard of, where he attended Compton Public Schools, went on to UCLA to get his undergrad, went on to UCLA to get his PhD, and then went on to raise 3 fabulous kids with his wife, Susan. We will talk about your kids later. Oh, and he went on to also author 7 books. Is that right, Al? Oh. 7 books. And one that's coming out. What is the one that's coming out and it's like hot off the presses? Or is it, yes. When is it?
It's my last academic book, right? I'm not going to write for the scholars anymore.
I'll take over that job for you.
I'm going to follow your lead. That kind of
right. Right. What's the name of it? Tell them.
It's called America's Racial Border Hoods.
Microphones, please.
It's about race in American cities over the last 150 years. But the book that I really want to write is about growing up in Compton. That will be the next book.
That's going to be number 8.
Yes.
That's awesome. Fun fact, Al.
Oh, yeah, fun fact.
I like to have a fun fact at the end of a bio, and then I'm going to get you guys all to give some background after we go through all the bios, if you would.
So fun fact first before bio.
Yes.
Okay. She just pulled this on us, 10 minutes ago, right?
I like to keep you guys on your toes, on your socks.
And I have to admit, this is the first time I've ever been on a panel without my shoes. Julie, I really like it. I'm going to do it from now on. Fun fact. At Stanford, when my undergraduate students found out that I had played basketball at UCLA, they said, "You played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?" I said, "Yeah, I was once 7 feet tall. When you get old, that body shrinks, right?" So the fun fact, it's a bit of an elaboration, right? I'm pushing the boundaries of fact pretty far. I taught Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we called him Big Lou back then, how to shoot the only 3-point shot he ever took in the NBA, and he made it. One day, we were out in practice. I was on the freshman squad. He was on the varsity.
This is like real?
Oh yeah, this is real.
Wow.
So Lou comes out of the locker room, and I say, "Lou," and he's about 20 feet on the baseline away from the. I said, "Man, we little guys have to shoot from way out there. You put the basket right, and it's either a stuff or you're 2 feet out. Let's see you shoot from where we shoot. He takes a shot and swish. That shut me up quickly.
That's a good fun fact. Brandi, I want you to do that next. Next up, Brandi Chastain, 2-time Olympic Gold Medalist, 2-time World Cup champion, 1-time sports bra streaker, author, mom, coach, All-American at Santa Clara University. Most importantly, one of the most incredible human beings you will ever meet, and can do anything she sets her mind to. Fun fact for you, Brandi.
I cry easily. God, why do you always put me on the spot like this? I'm terrible at this. Maybe that's my fun fact. I am awful, seemingly good under pressure, but not really. Oh, why did you start?
You want me to come back to you on it?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Okay. Elizabeth Magana, right? Elizabeth also has a phenomenal story that she's going to share of her background, but currently she is in charge of board and donor relations at one of my favorite Ronald McDonald houses in the world, at the fine Stanford University. Everything comes back to Stanford. I mentioned before she's a Peninsula College Fund scholarship recipient, and she also runs now their alumni group as well. She grew up here in East Palo Alto, went to UCLA with the help of that PCF Fund, and is now a mother of 2 kids, Marcelo, who's 4, and Mia, who's 1. Elizabeth, fun facts, please.
This is hard.
You guys are fun, I feel it.
Well, I have 2 chickens. And their names change every week. So not right now is Vicky and Paloma. My kids change their names constantly.
Who picks their names?
My son,
Oh,
Marcelo.
Yeah. Marcelo does? Vicky and
Paloma.
Paloma. How many eggs are they producing for you?
3 eggs per week,
Yeah?
I would say.
Is that all?
That's it.
You need to get more efficient at chicken.
Yeah, we don't really eat eggs, so it's okay.
Okay. I thought they were constantly pumping them out.
No.
All right, Anna. Next up, and then Elizabeth, I'm going to get you out and Anna to give your story as well. Anna is a leader in the healthcare field, and if I knew what any of the titles meant, which she put on her LinkedIn bio, I would tell you, all I know is she is the boss of a lot of people. As her socks say, in healthcare administration at Stanford Hospital. She's also, and this is really cool because I'm sure, as many of you know, especially from right here, Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. After its great success, on the website, they started their Lean In circles with leanin.org, which is the foundation side of it. And they have all these wonderful circles all over the country, actually globally, right? All over the world of these women and men, but women coming together to support and encourage each other. Well, Anna recognized that they didn't have any Lean In circles for Latinas. And so she started Lean In Latinas, which is fabulous, and we'll talk about that as well. And she gives Latinas, of course, a platform for them to be successful at work as well. Anna, do you have a fun fact, my dear?
Well, I was going to talk about my dog Roger, because I'm in love with him right now. More than my husband.
That's okay, I understand.
He's really awesome. Yeah, we just, a Chihuahua. Yeah, and he's just adorable. We got him from the Bayshore Animal Rescue. Anyway, I can go on and on about Roger, but I guess a fun fact would be that the New York Times just recently did an article called Lean In 5 Years Later, and it was really awesome to be featured in the article with Sheryl Sandberg and some really awesome women across the country. So I'm loving that fun fact right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. I read that article.
Yeah, thank you.
Al, will you, and I think we have a second mic over there as well. Is there a second one?
We got a fun fact.
Oh yeah, sorry, Brandi. Thank you, Al. Did you think of it? You thought you were going to ask it. Brandi, you're so much better than this.
I know, I'm terribly sorry, I'm disappointing all of you. Can you hold that for a moment? I guess I'm known for quick changes.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm going to do a quick change right now.
Oh, are you going to? I mean, we have kids in the audience, you know. Oh, really? You were holding out on your fun socks. Game day, and there's number 2. That is hysterical.
Yeah.
Can you guys see those soccer balls on the tips? Like she's volleying to.
Fun fact is that Julie Foudy cannot use her left foot. Oh, that's her fun fact, sorry.
That is a true fact. That's not fake news, that is the truth.
No, I think fun fact for me is I'm willing to try anything one time. And I've done a lot of things that I probably shouldn't do. Like, I did a reality TV show called Splash. I'm sure you all saw it. I can tell from the response. High dive, platform diving.
Kareem
which
was on it, right?
Yeah, Kareem was on it.
Yeah.
Which I practiced here or right down the street at Stanford, and no reason I should be doing that. But
How did you do?
yeah, I did pretty well. I think I made it to like the last 4.
That's good.
Not too bad. But yeah, I think fun fact is like I really like the book.
You're up for adventure.
I love adventure.
Yes.
I love to say, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do, but I'm going to go for it.
That's a beautiful skill set right there. All right, Al, background, my dear.
Okay, a little bit of background. First of all, thank you all for, let me shift this way so I can see y'all. Thank you all for coming to support this tonight, and I hope it's both fun and informative for you. I learned about the PCF about 2 years ago when I got an email from Charles asking me to participate in an event. But it wasn't Charles' invitation and his quite amazing description of the organization that sold me. But when I met some of the students that had received those scholarships, and those stories touched my heart deeply, and profound change in the life trajectory of those students and their families, and probably beyond that. And another thing too, Charles, was that every time I hear one of the recipients talk about the impact, that was me when I was that age. I came from the barrio, segregated Mexican-American neighborhood of Compton. When Compton was not an African-American community, it was basically a working-class white community, but a segregated barrio in which my father moved there over 100 years ago and was one of the early members of a Mexican-American community that grew up there. No one had ever gone to college from our entire community, right? Until my oldest brother spent 1 semester. It didn't work, but that planted in me the idea of college. What was it about? Again, no experience, but I had the opportunity. I shared this with Julie and with Charles because her book speaks to this. People that are around you, it could be family members, it could be friends, it could be others, mentors, that can instill confidence in you. Generation after generation, as a member of an ethnic minority group, right, the largest minority group in the state of California, that had been told, your people don't go to college, right? You're not supposed to go to college. You can work in a factory, or you can be a something else, but not college. But when people plant the idea that it's possible, and then provide you with the confidence. And this book, if you haven't read it, you need to, because it's filled with that, right? It's about risk-taking, and it's about team building, well, I had some people around me that instilled that confidence. So I was among the first cohort of Mexican-American students ever to go to UCLA, long time ago, right? 1966. And that experience changed my life forever. It was like the light went on, transformed my life, transformed the trajectory of my family and my children, right? And one thing that I see that's going on with the PCF alums is that they're giving back. They're mentoring others, the younger generation, and that's how you create change, right? And that's one of the real beauties and why I'm totally sold on PCF. Again, Charles, it wasn't your talk. It was those students that you so beautifully supported and mentored, and I'm so happy to be part of this growing PCF family.
Elizabeth, will you also give a little bit of your background as well?
Sure. And I wrote it up so that I won't cry or get nervous. So at the time when I received the scholarship, I was part of the second cohort of scholars for the Peninsula College Fund. So it was a group of maybe 9 or 11 students. And I received the scholarship in 2007 and went on to receive my degree from UCLA as well. And the Peninsula College Fund was instrumental in my success as a college student and also in my professional development. When I received the scholarship in 2007, the immediate benefit was that I got to go to my dream school. And I was so excited and very nervous, but I had no idea what the transition was gonna look like and what that would mean for me and how much I was gonna struggle. So when I say that I wouldn't have graduated from college without the support of my Peninsula College Fund mentors, it's not a statement to get more support or anything like that. It's a genuine reflection of the impact that the Peninsula College Fund had in my life. Like most of the Peninsula College Fund scholars, I was the first person in my family to go to college. High school and college were both uncharted territories for my family because my mom only received a 6th grade education and my father is illiterate. So they always understood the importance of education and made tremendous sacrifices, and their value for education was the driver for some of those sacrifices and those tough decisions that had to be made. Our American dream was for all of my siblings and myself to go to college. Although I was born at Stanford, right down the street, I grew up in a small farming village in the hotlands of Michoacan, Mexico. So coming back to East Palo Alto for good towards the end of my 6th grade was a big transition for me as well. That meant that I had to learn English in middle school, so you can imagine how fun that was for me. And like many of my PCF peers who were growing up in East Palo Alto at the time, it was a difficult experience because our community was facing a lot of crime and violence and lack of access to resources, and it's very different from what we have now today in EPA. But I was thankful and so fortunate because I had so much support and benefited tremendously from the direct work of many nonprofit organizations that came into our community to provide service. I understand firsthand the impact that this type of support has in the lives of many students and the impact it can have in many generations to come. PCF is changing the trajectory of entire generations and breaking the cycle of generational poverty by empowering students to get through college successfully. A lot of students from underserved backgrounds are getting into college, but the statistics are stacked against them, and getting through college is the real challenge. I'm happy to report that both of my siblings have graduated from college, and they're now in the audience over there. I am the oldest, so I like to lead by example.
That's awesome.
So needless to say, I'm incredibly grateful to the Peninsula College Fund and to all the other organizations that have impacted the lives of so many students. And it's incredible to see the growth and the impact that they're having in the Bay Area. So,
Yeah, when I was listening to the young girls here introducing themselves, my heart was singing actually. And I was born and raised in San Jose, and in a crime-ridden neighborhood in East San Jose. And unfortunately, when I was growing up, I never heard the word college ever from my parents. And so when I turned 18, I got out into the world and really didn't know what I was going to do next. And it wasn't until I got to Stanford in my late 20s that I realized that I was lost, literally lost. And I remember being in a meeting and not really knowing how to navigate it, not really understanding how to be effective in the workplace. Fortunately, I started to realize that I had a really big gap. So, fast forward a couple of years, I actually got my undergraduate and graduate degrees while working full-time at Stanford with my husband in Afghanistan, with my husband in Iraq, but I was determined. It was a real personal goal of mine. And so when I turned 50, Thank you. And actually, there was one important thing that I missed that I didn't mention, and it wasn't until recently that I've talked about it. And in the New York Times article that I mentioned, I put it out there. And I was actually a high school dropout. And when I tell people that, when they see the position that I'm in at Stanford, the accomplishments that I've had, they kind of have a jerk. Their body jerks. They're like, wait a minute, how is that possible? Well, even with setbacks like that, you can still be successful. But that was a really hard experience for me to get over. All that sort of bundled together when I organically started Lean In Latinas, and it wasn't something I planned. I was sort of sitting in my house on a Sunday afternoon, and for whatever reason, I kept going to the leanin.org site in the hopes of joining what they call circles or chapters, and there are 35,000 of these chapters and circles in the world. And I would see some, Lean In Palo Alto, all great groups, but nothing really spoke to me as a Latina. And just very organically, I pressed the button that said start a circle, put a name in there, put a mission and vision, and then just thought, okay, I don't know what's going to happen at this point. And within a week or so, I started getting Latinos who would say, in their testimonials to join, they would say, I'm a first-time graduate, first generation, and I want to be around other like-minded Latinas. Or I'm a Latina engineer in a primarily white male-dominated environment, and I don't know how to navigate. And what I thought would be a couple of women in my backyard, which it was for a couple months, at 6 months it was 100. What? 100 members. At the first year, it was, 200. We just hit 2 years. I'm losing count. We're close to 800. Wow. So it's really resonated. And really what I wanted to do is provide a network, because we were talking about this earlier, for Latinas, and we have everything from high school girls from East Palo Alto who are hoping to help prevent teenage pregnancy, help encourage education, all the way to mayors, and it's just a very diverse group. But sitting here thinking about this wonderful organization, PCF, that was not available to me. When I think back, how my life would have been different if an organization like this would have been available, because at the end of the day, my parents knew nothing about college. They wouldn't even know how to navigate the process. And so, again, I'm sitting here just really excited that there are organizations like this. There are people who are helping to advocate, and people like Julie and all of us sitting here with a common goal to really have Latinas and Latinos experience college and hopefully get into not only the C-suite, but get into the White House.
Yeah. Well, and it certainly is so timely to hear those stories, and the importance of telling those stories, I think, it is critical. The one thing that I constantly go back to when I'm listening to you all is, and I'm sure anyone in the audience, we all have these different obstacles in our life, or moments of anxiety, or moments where we think we can't take that step forward, or we can't raise our hand. When you look back over your background and your careers, and I'm only going to give you one thing, and Al, I'll start with you. What was the one thing that you look on and say, that was the reason I was able to get beyond that obstacle?
Well, as I reflect, Julie, on that question, there are actually a lot of them, but I'd say the first for me, it was a teacher. I was a really bad student up until the 6th grade. I would cut class, I did naughty things, and I was headed in the direction of the 4 little, I call them vatos, little gang guys in the barrio, and they all ended up, I mean, they didn't make it to their 30th birthday, right? These were all our 4 little latitos, little vato guys that I hang out with. But in the 6th grade, there was a teacher, and it was a gender thing. He was my first male teacher, and he played football with us at break time and lunchtime, and he taught me the importance of reading, of picking up a book, knowing that there was a particular topic that I liked. It was Greek mythology of all things, right?
In 6th grade?
In 6th grade. There were never any magazines or books in my household, right? My father had never stepped one day in a schoolroom in his life. He had never been to a classroom. My mother made it to the 7th grade, right? Yet they also, here's the other part to it, it really reconfirmed for me, because by that age, it was clear from my parents who had no idea, right, about college, none. But they instilled in us the importance of education. So those 2 things together were just like a light going on for me. It changed my reality going forward.
Well, I think I'll add something to the conversation now, is that I think my mother was the person. And like all the other stories, my parents didn't go to college either. My father went straight from high school to the military, and my mom actually went, I think, to 1 semester at San Jose State and realized that she became a flight attendant. And then during those days, you couldn't be married and be a flight attendant, and she and my dad got married, and so she became a mom. And then I watched her, watching trajectories, I watched her, she was just such an outgoing, powerful person, and she just had a way of influencing other people around her in a positive way. And then I saw her rise from a stay-at-home mom to an aide at the local school to becoming a woman who worked in a temporary service employment agency, and then she became the vice president. And she wore a suit, right? And so I looked at her like, wow, we didn't have these conversations about this is how you do it. Her actions always spoke so much louder than her words. And I think she gave me the great confidence to try those unusual things and to be out of your comfort zone. And I wasn't very successful initially in college, and I didn't have I loved reading and I loved learning, but I was not the structure of going every day and doing things and being on someone else's schedule was difficult for me. And so I wasn't successful at first, and I came home and I did it again, and then I was successful. But my mother was the person in my life who really was compassionate to everyone. I can't tell you, my mother has since long passed away. But I, every now and again, will have people come up to me and say, your mom helped me get my first job. And she helped me get a job when nobody else would give me a chance. And so that was really powerful to me. And so, with your help, Julie, and Marlene Bjornsrud, we started the Bay Area Women's Sports Initiative, which is an after-school program for girls of Title I schools. We have a lot of student athletes from Stanford, Santa Clara, San Jose State, and high schools and other junior colleges in this community, and the majority of the girls are Latinas. And so to be able to bring those kind of mentors to their life just is, to me, is I'm paying homage to my mom, because she really gave me the courage and the confidence to just, like I said, she was in high tech before I think we called it high tech, at IBM and Hewlett Packard. And she was doing the business, and she was the boss. Like, she was wearing those socks. And so, yeah. So she was really influential in the person I am now, for sure.
Great. Lark. Elizabeth, one key when you look back and say, okay, this was the thing that really allowed me to take that step forward.
I think for me, it had to be my Peninsula College Fund mentors. And I'm lucky because I got more than one. We were so small that I had Charles and Phil and Cynthia. So like I mentioned earlier, my transition was challenging. I went from a really small high school of a graduating class of like 27 people to classes at UCLA that were larger than my entire school. So that was very difficult for me. And I thank Charles and Cynthia for pushing me to step out of my comfort zone. I had always been interested in social work and education, and I had a summer job lined up. And Charles had talked to me about the Ronald McDonald House at Stanford. And it was an opportunity that I really wanted to pursue, but I was really nervous and scared, and I had my safety net already. And I also didn't have any money. So he encouraged me to come up here, go through the job interview, and I interned at the Ronald McDonald House at Stanford in the summer of 2010. And I'm now the board and donor relations manager there. So it was something that really pushed me to step out of my comfort zone. So thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
So I mentioned when I started at Stanford, I was pretty lost, which was true, and super shy. I couldn't even like talk in a meeting. And so my friends who have known me for a long time, if they saw me up here, they think, who is she? So really that defining moment for me was actually over years of time of my little voice was sort of the one that would say, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you can't do this. What are you doing? Are you insane? What makes you think you belong here? What makes you think you can do these things? What makes you think you could be a manager or a director? And then there was this defining moment where I looked around at the leadership at Stanford and said, why her and not me? And why him and not me? And when I started to challenge my own little voice, my inner voice, the voice actually that was preventing me from moving forward, it was everything between my two ears. It wasn't really anything else but that. Once I did that, I just started to gain confidence, and I started to put myself out there and challenge myself. So I think that for me, Julie, that was really the transformative moment. And where then it was kind of fun. I was like, oh, why not be a director? And I just kept going and going and going. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it's very similar. I remember having a moment that was transformational in that a woman who used to work with our national team, Colleen Hacker, who I talk a lot about in the book, I was having this anxiety over games and whether I was good enough to play on the national team. And this is, mind you, this is years into being on the national team. This isn't like the first few weeks. And I said to her, like, I don't like these butterflies at all. I don't like this feeling. I don't like this anxiety. This is so not me. I'm typically a very laid-back person, but I'm feeling this way before games. And she said something to me that was so profound and so simple. She said, love those butterflies. And I said, why? She said, because it means you care. It means it matters. You're emotionally and viscerally invested. And then, right, teach them to fly in formation. And I was like, how do I do that though? And she taught me strategies to doing that. So similar to you of looking around and saying, I'm kind of getting in my own way, that was my problem. When I realized, and I used to wear these headbands when I played, and all pictures of me playing on the national team, I have a headband around my wrist. And what I would do is she would say, do something physically, like roll your sleeves up, or fix your ponytail, or snap your headband, as a reminder to snap yourself out of it. So you physically, when you feel like you're starting and mentally to go down that, I'm not good enough, and the butterflies are starting to take over, I would literally, like physically snap my head down, which would snap me out of it, a reminder to replace that negative thought with a positive thought. And it is fascinating how well it works. To the point where, I would be in a game and it would be bouncing off my shin, or I'd start to go into that. And you know what happens when you go in that downward spiral is it just gets worse and worse. And it would stop me right away, and you replace it with something positive. So that was, I think, a fabulous one that I learned. The other thing, when I look back, is the power, which you've all spoke about, of having a team around you, right? And Brandi and I were lucky enough to be around these amazing human beings on the national team that when we were fighting for the right to even have a Women's World Cup and people told us we were crazy, we looked around and thought, I don't think we're crazy, actually. We just want a Women's World Cup. Like, you've been having it for men for hundreds of years. Why isn't there one for women? Or why don't we have women's soccer in the Olympics? And the power of knowing you have a team to support you even when you're afraid. So if you would, speak to the power of finding the right group. And I call it a dream team in the book, but the power to finding the right group around you to help you navigate that period as well, Al, or whomever.
Well, that question takes me back to starting Stanford University as the 5th Latino faculty member ever hired, the 13th minority faculty member ever hired at the university. This is 1975, right? Assistant professor, isolating in a lot of ways, although there were some really nice people that took me under the wing. But the team was this group of other Latino and African American faculty, and we collaborated and we commiserated a lot too. But it gave us a sense of we're in this together, right? And we have to be committed, not just for ourselves to succeed at Stanford, but for the next generation, because change occurs slowly in a place like universities, snail's pace sometimes. But I think connecting with those other folks and white colleagues that were incredibly supportive for us being there, being the first minority faculty at an institution. This was occurring, of course, across higher education at this time. The first affirmative action hires at a university. And that feeling that, like a team, because I told you I played basketball, that gave me the same sense of being a member of a team, a strategy, a collaboration, cooperation, friendship, and that grounds you and makes you feel more comfortable. And that certainly was true for that group.
Brand?
I think mine was, I between the time I went to college and the time I got out of college, my collegiate career was derailed by 2 ACL reconstructions. And so prior to that time, I played every minute. I was the goal scorer. I was a terrible teammate because my focus was on having the ball and scoring the goals. And if I didn't contribute, I didn't feel like I was happy for the team environment. And so for me, it took having to step away from the field and sit on the sideline to realize how important a team really is, and to be vulnerable enough to say, I need support. And I didn't know I needed it emotionally as well as physically until that happened. And it probably, and I knock on wood for everybody, that will never happen to you. But for me, it was absolutely necessary for me to move forward and to understand where I was going and why I wanted to go there, and how to make it successful, how it was going to work. And having teammates like Julie and the rest of the national team were critical, but before that was recognizing my parents as a support system, the doctors, the physical therapists, and then ultimately, girls, myself. Like, I think a lot of the times when there was a challenge out there, I felt I was good enough, and then when it started to get hard, it was like, I'm good enough. I don't have to do that. That's what other people do that aren't good enough. And that's what I told myself, because I was nervous and I was scared and I was unsure about what the outcome would be. And learning how to go through the process of rehabilitation and becoming healthy really allowed me to say, okay, you're going to have to push a little harder than you have before. And doing that showed me that I could rely on people, that I could try my hardest, and maybe I wouldn't get to the goal that I needed to every day, but that incrementally over time I was getting there. And when I got to the end, I realized that the small contributions that I could make from the sideline of cheering, or maybe the 5 minutes that I could play, or then became the 10 minutes, that other people were experiencing that, and that was valuable to the team. It wasn't just the player who was playing the full 90 minutes. And so I think I learned the value of a full team, that everybody mattered, and that everybody was critical to the success, no matter how much they played.
Yeah. And so much of that, it seems, too, with women, which is one of the things I love about women, but I also think it's one of the great things that sets us back, is, to your point, like, almost afraid of that failure, right? I want to be perfect. And I'm not sure, and I'm going to convince myself that, I don't need that. But a lot of it is we want to check every single box, which I love about women. We want to be prepared, and we've studied, and we've had that training. And how many times in life does someone say, hey, but do you want to try this? And we as women go, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. I don't have that skill set. Whereas, my 9-year-old boy is like, yeah, I'll go. Right? And I love that we want to be over-prepared, but we have to just raise our hands, right? And trust that the person next to you doesn't know how to do it either. And you have to get in there, and you got to learn and fail, and then learn some more, and you will grow with that. Which I always find super interesting, is that's my big new thing, is just raise your hand. You're going to be fine. Elizabeth and Anna, what would you say, knowing all that you know now, what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
I would say be honest with yourself and be honest with your team, because the people around you are going to accept you, and they're going to help you. And the more they know, the more aware they are of your situation and what you're going through, the better prepared they'll be to support you.
Great advice.
Oh, that's a hard question. I think I would tell myself that no matter how horrible it feels, there is hope out there. And growing up in the neighborhood that I was in, I didn't even realize I knew there was a world outside of that environment. I knew that when I would go to restaurants, hotels, I knew that there were more choices than to be in the kitchen working or cleaning rooms, which my mom did. I would tell myself, you can achieve more. I didn't have that view, that perspective out there. I would just tell myself, you can be anything you want to be.
Amen to that. I would tell myself, not worry about the padded bras. It's okay to be concave. I was very self-conscious of that as a child. I wish I wasn't. I think I got it from my mother, actually. All right, I'm going to open it up to some questions for our final 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. But Al, starting with you, we're going to go down the line. Leadership is, in one sentence. Run-ons kind of allowed.
Leadership is about taking risks and confidence that you can get past that risk to succeed.
Yeah, I like that.
Leadership is being a good example, being brave, and knowing when to listen to your peers and taken their advice.
Excellent.
For me, leadership is diverse, and it's not positional, it's definitely personal, and you can be a quiet leader, and that's okay.
So I would say it's being respectful and recognizing that everybody can be great as long as there's a great opportunity to demonstrate everybody's talents. This was also a hard one. At Stanford, I have probably about 400 employees, with it being one of the most engaged group in the organization based on a survey that we did. And people say that I'm a great boss, and I think because I started at a staff level, and even though I've gone to college and I have a fancy title, at the end of the day, I'm the same person. And I also had a really great mentor, Dr. Sheffrin, and he saw how ambitious I was. I wanted to be a director, and I had all these, and he said to me, Anna, don't lose your identity within your title. And I remained humble to that, because even though I have all these fancy titles, if I go to Walmart later, nobody cares. And I get in line just like everybody else. So I think leadership is...
Say that line again. Don't lose yourself to...
Don't lose your identity within your title.
Don't lose your identity.
And in so many words, don't believe your own hype. Don't get caught up in that. Don't get caught up in the title, because I've seen some folks that get caught up in that. They lose their position or job, what have you, and then they have a hard time re-identifying themselves. And it also kept me very humble.
Yeah, I love that. I would say leadership is service. And most profound, as we've seen tonight with PCF, it's about empowering others through that service. And the power of someone believing in themselves and what you can do to help them get there. So, shall we open it up for questions? Who's got some? Bring it!
Can I ask the first question?
Yes, ask the first question, Brandi.
So,
This velvet couch makes me kind of sweaty. I'm hot.
leadership is honesty.
I might
Don't,
shed
you got your
some
microphone
layers.
on.
I'm gonna shed layers. Is that okay?
Yeah. That's you with that. My question is to the three of you. I was talking to Julie before, and she was telling me your stories, and then you start talking, and you said that your parents didn't have education, but it was important to them. How did it become important for them if they didn't have education around them? Because I'm just curious, for those who are in the audience, or maybe those who will go out to work with kids, how does that manifest itself if it's not seen or if it's not talked about?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it was never made real explicit, like, you need to go to school because this will advance you. It was just understood. And I think for my parents, and this transcends whether it's Mexican immigrant, all of us, there's so many people here. How many of you come from immigrant origins, right? It's pretty common to the immigrant experience, especially with those immigrants that start at the bottom, right? That you're working to enhance the possibility of opportunity for your children. And they understood, again, without my father not knowing at all about education, my mother only going through the 7th grade, somehow they knew intuitively that school, staying in school, was an escalator to social mobility without ever telling us, right? But it was just understood, right? And all of us, it was inculcated in all of us, but in subtle ways, right? So it was never that explicit. But it clearly was understood among all of us.
So I would just add, I wish I could say that my parents understood the value of college, but they didn't. And even when I decided to get a degree, I don't even think they really understood what I was going to do. And so it didn't matter if I had to work full-time all day and go to school at night, or go to school on a Saturday. It wasn't even something I had to do for work. It was something I felt that I had to do on a personal level. One of the things that I wanted to mention and what I do with Lean In Latinas and leanin.org is around the ongoing wage gap for women. And we know on average it's 20% gap right now. And for Latinas, it's 46%. So the gap is the largest for Latinas. And people ask me, what do you think contributes to that? Well, I think, we need more Latinas to graduate from college, not just to be admitted to college, but to graduate from college. When I actually graduated, got my master's, then there was cultural as well. When I got my master's and I was with my husband's family in Central California in Visalia, I was really proud of this. And one of his aunts said to me, Anna, when I got married and had family, I put them first. And I thought, oh, wow, there it is. So I think there's also an opportunity, especially for Latinas, because I've seen in the family there's a lot of support still for the men getting college education, but not for females. So I think that's changing. We're seeing examples of that. I saw it right here on this stage, but I think there's a lot more work to be done.
Who's got a question for us?
Then come to the two microphones.
Oh, and we've got 2 microphones. Or I can see
I
Gary.
can just speak up. Well, it seems that Al and Julie and Brandi, you certainly have been influenced and supported by groups, primarily through sports. And Elizabeth, to a certain extent, with PCF, at a very young age. So it seems like having a group, having that group support seems to be, at sort of that late teenage, seems to be very critical to future success. And I just wondered what you all think about that, whether it's sports or some other, some other group that provides leadership, confidence, examples, adult examples of what you can become.
I think what I've learned through being a player, and now I'm coaching young girls who, I have a very diverse team. Multicultural, multicolor, certain, high affluency, low income. And the thing I feel like I'm focusing on most right now is trust. And that the trust that you develop in teams, I think, allows individuals to feel that vulnerability and then take those risks. Because if you know the people around you are there to support you and have your back no matter what, you can, get those butterflies to fly in formation, and you can kind of get outside of your own belief or maybe the cultural norm or, a height disadvantage, on the basketball court or, whatever it is. I think that's a big one. And, the age group that I'm working with right now is that 13-year-old girl. And she's just like starting to be influenced by these outside social media, especially right now. Who likes what and how many likes do I get? And, maybe these false realities of who really is supporting her. So I think it's the trust that teams give, for me especially, was really, I think, life-altering with the national team. It's like, I'm a mess up from sometimes, but I'm pretty good at something, but I'm not going to get it right all the time, and sometimes I had to get corrected back into my lane, and that trust really helped me to see that they were not telling me what to do, but they were just helping me guide myself into in a way that I could be successful, and then therefore I could help the team be successful.
We're kicking you back into the lane.
There you go.
Yeah, and echoing Brandi's comments, that trust is really important, and it's feeling like you belong, feeling like you're part of a group, feeling like you can trust them, and that you guys are finding that camaraderie, that you're going through the same thing together, and that it's okay to struggle, it's okay to be nervous and be stressed out, but that you find the confidence within each other to overcome some of those challenges. And I think that it's not only in sports, but also I experienced this in college, like your social circle and like affinity groups and other resources.
Good question.
So I would say that's what Lean in Latinas is about, is some of the things that we talk about is how can we help each other interview better, negotiate. In all the years that I've been managing staff, I have never had a female ask me for more money, ever. And I've had men do it. So these are the things that, and so it is a team environment, it is a network where they're helping each other. Role play, how do you negotiate for more money? How do you interview? How do you whatever in the workplace? So it has created that team spirit that's needed to address some of these issues that we have in the workplace.
And it's a huge confidence builder with that, too. You're not alone. Most important. Any others? If not, one over here. Yes. You can go to that microphone or you can shout it out, either way. Introduce yourself, Ronald. Introduce yourself, Ronald.
My name is Noemi. I'm a junior in high school.
Yeah.
So technically, I would be first generation to go to college. But as Latinas, I have a question. As Latinas, there's so many obstacles have been put on it for success. How did you push forward and become successful?
Great question.
Very good question. I think that for me, a key to overcoming some of the challenges that I faced was that team of support that I had, not only from the Peninsula College Fund, from a group of support from family members, aunties and uncles, people who believed in me, and understanding that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to feel like you're failing. And when you have those feelings and the voice that's in the back of your head, you have to be proactive about addressing those. And you have to be honest with yourself and with those around you so that you can really get the resources and the support that you need to overcome some of those challenges. So tapping into those resources and raising your hand is really important.
Can I ask a question on top of that? What about if the people around you, because I'm working with these girls and I'm trying to, give them guidance, and if I haven't had that experience, but people around them are just telling them what they said to you, which is, well, that's not what you do. That's not what we do. You're not going to get there. And they don't have the same belief or the same maybe energy to get beyond that. How can someone like me help a young girl that you were like you continue?
Well, if you can't see it, you can't be it, is how I look at it. And you're awesome, but we need more color. Yeah. We need more role models that we can feel like we associate with. And I think there's a lot of great intention out there, but we need more diversity. I didn't have that. And so that's probably why I had a hard time believing I could actually be something. I couldn't see what I could potentially be. Nobody looked like me. The only people that looked like me, again, were in labor positions for the most part. And then the few that were leaders were far and few between. So it's not an easy answer per se. I wish there was an easy answer. But I think that's going to help over time. But I think we have some way to go. But sort of to answer your question, for me, the catalyst was becoming a single mom, believe it or not. When I became a single mom, that was really the time where I had to stand up and say, what am I going to do? I have no college education. I have to support me and my child. And so unfortunately, it took a life event like that to really push me out of my comfort zone and push me out of the stereotype, sort of what were you talking, that was likely assigned to me without even realizing it. So it's been a long journey, to say the least, to get here. but I feel blessed, and again, my heart sings when I see what young Latinas are doing today that are going to really change the perception and dynamics in society going forward.
And what it says to me is, Elizabeth, have the confidence to continue to share your story, right? Because I think a lot of people think, well, you know, I don't have much to say, right? And I know you were concerned about this panel in terms of just, you know, what am I going to add to this panel? Like that, your experience in your history and what you're now doing, more people need to hear that, right? Because then they see it in them. They have the same background or they have the same history. And I think Anna's right. Like, it's one thing coming from Brandi or I, but we have a very different background, right? To hear your story is super powerful. And so never underestimate the power of that, I would say.
Before we leave, because I thought that's a really important question for so many young people across the country. Challenges that may seemingly be insurmountable as a teenager, right? Let's say, or in college, and we all struggle different ways in college, and you think, I can't get over that, I can't deal with it, but you can't throw your hands up in despair and resign yourself to something other than success. Two things. You have to be proactive to search out the help that will allow you to get over that obstacle. And today, we have abundant resources to help you or anyone that is facing a challenge, but you have to be brave enough to say, I need help, let me see where I can get that help. And then all of us have stories of that help that came our way. And then I'll share with you one other thing that I learned, a really important lesson from our second son. Went to Stanford, is a civil engineering major, but he wanted to play football, right? And he was not a Division I scholarship athlete. He walked on as a punter, but he was also a wide receiver. And at Stanford, they said, well, look, you know, you're probably never going to play, but work hard. He went on to an 8-year-long career in the NFL. And you know what he attributed to? One basic idea. This goes to your question. Be prepared when opportunity comes your way, because you never know, right? We can think about all of those things. Opportunity will come your way, I can assure you. But be prepared. And though there are lots of obstacles, seek that help that will allow you to be prepared when that opportunity comes your way.
Can I add to that? That's perfect. There was never an opportunity I turned down at work. Even when I was given an opportunity, like one of my bosses would say, do this job or do this role, my head was saying, of course. My mind would say, is she insane? I can't do that. I've never turned down an opportunity, no matter how scared I was, no matter how much I doubted myself. And so for me, that also helped.
Well, when the soccer story was, I was a forward, as I told you, and then I was cut from the team after the World Cup, and I missed the next World Cup, and I was desperate to be on that national team, and so I did the work, and I didn't do the work probably as well before because, again, I think I was good enough, and then I really did the work, and I had good support by my teammates. And then the coach said, well, we want you on the team, but not as a forward, as a defender. And I had never played that position before. And in that moment, I had to decide between, do I have too much pride in what I think I am, or did I want to be on the team? And it was a no-brainer. It was, I want to be on the team. And so being open to that was life-altering. It changed everything. And so change is coming. And I love it because I say all the time, change is coming, be prepared. And then embrace it. Squeeze it really tight.
And then Brandi went on to be one of the best attacking outside backs in the history of our program to ever wear a USA jersey. She never played that position. Final question. I know I had said right here. Do you still have one? Or was it answered?
Kind of, yeah, he did.
You got it? Any last one? Right here, right on.
How to know what was the most influential?
Wait, I need to hear your name. How old you are?
I'm Sibel and I'm 14.
Hi, Sibel.
I wanted to know what was the most influential mistake that you've ever made? How did you A, move past that mistake you made, and B, how has that influenced your lives and your careers?
Dang, Sibel, that is a great one. Bringing the heat on the last question. Who's got it?
I'm trying to decide which one.
I know. True.
You know, I when I talk to different groups, I talk about success, right? And I saw this in a cartoon once, but I had it in my head before, and I didn't really have it drawn out like this. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, "That's what I was thinking." Over here was a XY axis, and it had success up here, right? And it had a straight line, and then it says reality, and success was here, and the line went like this, right? And I think that's for me that literally is honestly my career path, because it was up and down and sideways and 1 step forward, 5 steps back, and every opportunity I had to have a growth mindset absolutely helped. Thinking I couldn't do something never got me closer to where I wanted to go. And so being open to playing left back. I mean, the story of the penalty kick in the World Cup '99 was the assistant coach came over and said, "Do you want to take a penalty kick?" And I said, "Yes." And I thought it was, and she said, "Okay, fine." And she went away, and I thought that was kind of odd, because if in the run of play there was a penalty kick, I would have taken it. So it was kind of like, that was a weird question to ask, but okay, whatever. And then the coach came over and says, "Okay, you're going to take a penalty kick." I said, "Yeah, I talked to Lauren already." He goes, "Okay, great, you're going to take it with your left foot." And have you ever seen that Roadrunner cartoon? When he goes away, it's like all the dust comes up, like, shoo, he was out of there. He didn't want to have a conversation about it. He just said, "You're going to do it with your left foot." And, as it goes, I had never taken a penalty with my left foot before. This is the World Cup final. And earlier in the year against China, I had taken a penalty, hit the crossbar, went out, we ended up losing the game. So now here we are playing China again. So I think, the things that make us stumble are not the things that help us fail. They're really the opportunity for us to be better. So I had so many stories like that, but I just think the overarching theme is there are wonderful opportunities to be better than you were yesterday.
Wait, time out. You've got to finish that story. So she gets told she's going to take it with her left foot, doesn't even know that she's the 5th kicker, the last kicker. Literally, as the kickers are going up, we found this when we were shooting the documentary, The 99ers, which is a fabulous documentary on ESPN, produced by Giuliani. She's like, "Oh, I guess I'm not number 1. And then the second person would run up, she goes, "I guess I'm not number 2. I was like, "Shut up! You didn't know?" She's like, "No." She watched every kicker go up until the 5th shot she had to make, or they went to the 6th kicker, and you didn't want the 6th kicker up there, because that was me. So it was the last kicker, was the 5th kicker, and she's taking it with a foot she's never taken it with. Seriously, what's going through your mind when you walk up there?
Don't look at the goalkeeper. Well, the reason why that was going through my mind was because earlier in the year on the penalty kick that I missed, as I took the ball from the referee and I put it down and I looked up, the goalkeeper was standing in front of me. It was kind of like 2 boxers in the middle of the ring, doing the psych out thing. And I'd never experienced that before. And she was a very quirky character. Really, she played in the WSA, Gao Hong. She winked and smiled, and I was like, what is going on right now? And so I backed up, and the referee blew the whistle, and I hit it pretty well, but I hit it hard, and it hit the crossbar, and it went out. And like I said, we ended up losing the game. So as I was then approaching, after I did the whole, is it my turn? No, it's not my turn. Is it my turn? No, it's not my turn. then all I was thinking was, don't look at the goalkeeper. Again, I think one of those wonderful life experiences that helps you grow. My husband constantly reminds me, because he coaches women's soccer in Santa Clara, that these times it's growing pains, that, literally you're going to go through growing pains, but it's really what's going to help you to be successful. And you got to go through those, and you got to feel those, and you got to experience those to get somewhere and to do something and to be these ladies and this gentleman.
Good question. With that fabulous question, I think we will end it here. I wanted to bring Charlie Schmuck to the stage. And one, to thank you, Charlie, for this incredible organization that you have founded and continue to.
So, Phil, our interim ED, is over there just panicked because I'm standing here with a microphone. My daughter's cringing in the back row. I will be short because I can't really, one-up what you guys have done. This has been a big 2 weeks for Peninsula College Fund. Last week, our staff helped pick 55 new students, and Marisol was one of the first 3, and I think Elizabeth, you were in the top second or third class, so she was like in the top 10 of all our kids. One statistic that I just wanted to share that I think is really important, that says a lot about these 3, and it says a lot about you too, Anna. If you look at all the kids who go to, all the first generation Hispanic kids who go to a 4-year college, okay? That's a really narrow, these are the kids who were the celebrities and stars of their 8th grade. They got it through high school. They didn't drop out like a lot of their friends. And not only did they go to college, but they went to a 4-year college. And if you look at national statistics, it's confusing, but it's somewhere less than 20% of all those stars who start a 4-year college finish in 6 years. 80% dropout rate. That, I mean, if you had a business, you'd close it, So when you look at these kids, these 3, and I call them kids because of my age, they are rock stars. And not only did they get there in the freshman year, at Connecticut College or at Santa Cruz or at Stanford or at UCLA, but they finished. And now they're contributing and being that role model that Anna's talking about that we need so much. So 55 students, number 1. Number 2, we also had big news this week because we have a new executive director, and she is here tonight. And Christine Morales, where's Christine? Oh, right there. She's here with her daughter, and she's not getting paid for tonight because she starts Monday. But we are so delighted, and I think Christina was probably sitting there listening to some of these stories, in particular about yours, Anna, and because she grew up in San Jose. And when we do this and other future things, Christina can share her story because she could have very easily been on this panel tonight. The panel could not have been better. Let's have a round of applause for that. I've known the Foudys, Jim and Judy, since 1973. And I don't want to ask Julie how old she was in 73, but I have pictures of her and her brothers and sisters in Manhattan Beach with their heads all in a circle in the sand, and she probably was 5 or something at that point. And then Jim would send me something and say, oh, well, she made all league, or next thing, oh, she's in one of those little pictures in the back of Sports Illustrated. She's going to Stanford. Oh, she's All-American. Oh, she's not going to be going to medical school. She's on the Olympic team, just amazing. And you can, both she and Brandi, realized so long ago that pyramid of playing high school sports, which I coach and teach, is really difficult to even make the teams today. No less college, no less Olympic teams, World Cup teams. And what did they both do? They both said, okay, I get that. So I'm going to provide Bossy for the community to help these girls not only have sports when they don't have sports, but also to teach them those skills. And then Julie, I remember in my house in Los Altos, 15, 20 years ago, she and her husband talking about this idea of starting this camp. And if you go to these camps, and I encourage you, her camp will be down the street here in June, end of June, go to the camp, because she recognized that it's not just soccer. It's women's leadership, and then out of that, as Julie talks about, the book came. We've been taped tonight for cable television, and I sat back and I just said, thank God we were taped, because there were so many gems by all of you. And Al, you did a good job holding up the male part. So I want to thank Isamar and Maricel. Like Anna was saying, you sit there and Elizabeth. You know, I've known Elizabeth now for a lot of years, and it's just so wonderful to see how a summer job at Ronald McDonald House, and she, per your point, Al, was ready. She kept in contact with those people. There was probably, what, a 4-year gap in between, 5-year gap or 6-year gap in between the summer job and your hiring, right? But she kept in contact with those people all the time. Talked to them. And then when they had an opening, boom, they went for Elizabeth, and she's doing a phenomenal job. Anyway, I just want to say how blessed I feel, you know, to be part of this, and also how excited I am to have Christina, who's going to lead us in the future as we grow both here and in East San Jose, a place where one of Al's 3 kids is a principal of one of the schools that we're servicing now, and which will be big time in the next few years. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to encourage you, if you're moved by our presentation tonight, their presentation tonight, to take this information you were given on the way in. If you want to make a donation, Phil has a square. Do you know how to use that square, Phil? He thinks he does. Okay. So I have no idea what a square even is. Okay. So we are happy to take your donations. And if you want to think about it, that's fine too. But beyond money, which is always important because it allows us to do more, we are also open to you being a mentor. You know, we're going to have 70, we went 40 kids last year, 55 kids this year, and we're doing 70 next year. So down the road, we're going to have 300 kids in college at the same time. We need a lot of mentors. So think about applying, because it's a year-round process right now, and we're already starting to take names for next year. You can volunteer. You can be a reader of our applications. There's all sorts of things you can do. So I encourage you to jump in, and again, thank you for your purchasing your tickets tonight, because that money, there was no cost involved. Al's going to charge me, but none of the others are going to charge me. And I think we're very lucky to have such an incredible panel. And I just want to say thank you all for just a marvelous evening. When we go in the lobby, there's some sort of snacks, water and cookies or something. And they're going to, after I take a couple of quick pictures, they're going to come out in the lobby. So if you want to get an autograph or you want to talk to them, you're welcome to do that. Thank you all very much.